Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. I've been doing this podcast since September of 2012, and boy, are my lips tired. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Now, we have decided that today is going to be about having more fun than is legally allowed. Robert and I have kind of figured that out in advance because we both realize we have the same warped sense of humor, so watch out. This is going to be dangerous here. Bridget will be back next week. Hopefully Monique will be here as well. But Robert Riopel is an author who's actually in the middle of writing a second book. And we're going to get something today that you don't normally get on a podcast. You're going to get the second book before it's published. I'm not saying the whole book, that would actually be too long for the show, but, we're going to get a nice taste of the book. I mean, this is not a 17-hour podcast, so sorry about that, but that's okay. So Robert, hello. Welcome to the show.
Walt, I could speak fast and I could get it out really quick and maybe get into the whole thing. No, see, that's not going to work. I can't even think that fast.
I don't know how those old radio announcers did it. The ones that spoke at 50 miles an hour. I never figured that one out. Somehow that's why they got paid the big bucks, I guess. But yeah,
that had to give you all the disclaimers in the last 5 seconds of a commercial, right?
Right. It was all the things that the magical medical formula made you allergic to, but that was another thing.
Right.
Anyway, no. It's like when you get the seasickness pills, and the seasickness pills have a side effect of nausea. It's just like you just have to deal with that. That's all there is to it.
That's it.
Anyway, you already have one book. You already have one book out, and
I do.
Just tell us about that book very briefly, and then let's get into the second book.
That's this book here. It's called Success Left a Clue, and it is 6 life-changing habits to achieving your dreams while keeping it real, relevant, and repeatable. And I love, because my initials are RRR, I use that to really remind myself that anytime I'm training people, I want to keep it real. I don't want to just give fluff. I want to give the good, the bad, the ugly, so that you understand what it really takes to have the life of your dreams. I'm going to keep it relevant because why teach you something that worked 5 years ago, but that doesn't work today? So always keeping it relevant and repeatable. I love to teach skills and systems that people can do over and over and over again. Definition of a system, repeatable process that works. So that's
true.
Yeah, the book and it's a very easy read because here's the thing about me, Walt. I got one brain cell left. I'm doing everything I can to take care of it. And so if I make it difficult to read, no one's going to read it. So I had to keep it really simple. And in all seriousness, here's what I'm going to tell people. If they have a chance to read that book, do not let the simplicity fool you. Because actually with the mind, you talk law of attraction. That's one of the things that takes people out is they go, it can't be that easy because their mind tries to make it more complicated. And so I kept it simple and I tell people, don't let the simplicity fool you. You read it, you do the actions, watch what it'll do for your life.
I'm loving that. I got to say hello to Luke and Sam who are saying hello in the live stream. Luke just pointed out, he said, I always thought they sped up the audio rather than speaking so fast on the radio. Could be. I don't really know. That would actually make some sense. So,
they record it like the disclaimers for this medication are.
And they do it with a really deep voice so that they don't sound like, the Alvin and the Chipmunks or something like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, because that could get a little bit dangerous, to say the least. But no, I love the fact that you believe in keeping it real, keeping it down to earth. Actually, when you were talking there for a moment about what was the thought process behind your book, it reminded me of something that a good friend of mine, who's also one of my co-hosts, he does the Thursday show with me, his name's Dan Mangena. He said recently, the subconscious mind always wins, always. And when you were saying what you were saying, that's the thought that was going through my mind.
Yeah. And that's why I call it out right at the beginning, is because it's like, look, program yourself that this can be easy. And I just follow the steps. And if you think about it, all through school, we're programmed to have to figure things out, make them more difficult. Even if someone hands us and says, here's a system that's working, our mind goes, but if I follow that system, that's bad because I'm cheating. So I have to figure out a way to do it my way. And so then we put difficulties into it. And that manifests into every part of our life. And we wonder why. All of a sudden we want to attract something in our life. I would love to have more wealth in my life. But I'm going to have to be that wealthy jerk and I'm going to have to work hard at it. And your mind goes, not worth it. So all of a sudden it sabotages you at every turn when you're going, but I really want this. and your subconscious is going, maybe not.
Yeah, we always think it's like the devil on the shoulder, but it's really not the devil on the shoulder. It's what's going on inside what is often called the body of the mind, the subconscious mind.
Yeah.
It's pretty dangerous.
It is. Well, and look at the root of what you just said, because people have heard the saying like selling your soul to the devil. And if you look at the deep Aramaic originations of those words, like the devil and that, it actually comes out to mean in Aramaic, crazy thought.
Really? Interesting.
So when you're selling your soul to the devil, you're just selling yourself to your crazy thoughts of, I have to do this hard way. And I'm going to have to, this is why people pay the relationship price. To be successful, my family's going to pay the price because they go drive. I got to do whatever it takes to get the success, not realizing that you can actually change that thought and go, you know what? I'm going to choose to have success and happiness, success and a great family relationship, success and a healthy body. Because we're holistic beings. So you can't have one area without the other. So why not create the balance you want in all of those realms? And I'm always telling people, I'm talking about mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and financial. Why not have a great life in all those areas? It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Oh, we love hearing that around here because I told you already that our subtitle is Your Daily Dose of Happy, but the addition to the title is Living Our Abundance. And that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. The world is abundant. Absolutely. And so if you're open to it, and it starts with that subconscious, how do I help it to have all faculties firing in the direction of what I really want? And that is the law of attraction if you think about it. It's, people go, and I imagine you talk about this all day with different people, but in the trainings I've done around the world with over 500,000 students in 3 to 5 day trainings all around the world, 100 to 6,000 at a time, I practice the law of attraction, and I still need the reminder. Because my mind might be in one direction, but all of a sudden my self-esteem might be in a different direction. My actions then go in a different direction. And I'm like, why is this not working? Why is this not bringing to me what I want? Or then having the attachment that, well, it's got to be done in this amount of time and look like this, or it's not what I wanted. And that's not how it works.
Well, it works in a different way that you don't want it to work. I mean, it does work. It's just not quite what you had in mind. Yeah,
exactly. And your vocabulary is such a big critical key to that, because words that you use, are you empowering yourself or are you actually disempowering yourself? And I don't want to make it feel like it's a heavy weight on people's shoulders, but there's little things that you can do to just practice getting in the habit of just going for what you want and allowing. Have you ever heard of the word entrainment?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And that's all it is that you're being entrained, you're being attracted. Law of attraction, like attracts like. So you put out a vibration, everything's energy, and that like energy is coming your way, and it entrains together. So how do you make it easier? By allowing yourself to actually put out the vibrations you want, instead of saying, well, I don't want this. Well, then you're not going to, the universe doesn't understand don't. All it's going to hear is what comes after don't, and it's going to send you that. I don't want to lose my job. Here you go. You got fired. Let me help you out. Right? Yeah, and I can go scrolling all over. Right?
That's the annoying side of the law of attraction. Like, oh my God, you mean it always works? Give me a break here. I'm trying to accomplish something here. You're going to do this? But yeah, that's exactly what it's going to do.
That's exactly.
Yeah. And you also made a really good point. How I think the way you phrased it is, this stuff, and that you find yourself tripping up. We all do that. Yeah. We trip up constantly. And it's amazing how it even happens during conversations here on the show with people who are like experts, and we'll get off on a side topic, and the side topic will be some sort of a rant on something going out in the world and so forth. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, do you realize what you're doing right now? I'm not really sure you are. And then I'll be the one who does it 5 minutes later. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a constant vigilance exercise.
Well, and you know what's really cool? And Walt, have you watched the documentary, The Social Dilemma?
Oh, God, yes.
And you saw the fear and the anger it brought into people. Like, how dare they? How, they're tracking everything. Yeah, a really good friend of mine, him and I had a great conversation, and he starts laughing. He goes, are you kidding? What they just showed you on that documentary is the greatest example of law of attraction in the world today. He said, because if you think about it, it's just feeding back to you what you're putting into your social media. So if you're not liking it, it's because that's what you're putting your focus on. So, we came up with hashtag slow your scroll, meaning when you scroll through, because it's tracking how long you're on something, slow your scroll to things you like. Instead of, if you see something you don't like, instead of, well, I'm going to fight against that, which will bring you more of the crap, you just go to the things you like, and instead of liking them, click the love button and watch how quickly your feed will change. All the commercials, everything will change. So you can actually, if you understand this, you can get your social media bringing you what you truly want, more of it instantly. And when we were teaching this to some people, they go, well, how quickly can my feed change? And we're like, instantaneous. That's the easy part. What is a little tougher is the maintaining, because dragons are always going to come in and try to tempt you, to try to take you off that path you're on. But now for the last 6 months, since my friend and I had this discussion after that documentary, when I'm on Facebook, I speed past anything I don't want to see. I slow down for what I do. I make sure I love it. And my feed just keeps feeding me what it is I'm putting my focus on. It is the greatest example of law of attraction.
It's true. And it's actually a lot more, not desirable. What's the word I'm looking for? It's more real world, perhaps. It's more adaptable to the way we live to take that approach, rather than to take the approach that my good friend Joel recommends for people who really have trouble with social media, which is hashtag uninstall Facebook app. I mean, that it's the more extreme approach to what you're trying to do there, but yours is a lot nicer, a lot happier, a lot more joyful, And by the way, Joel's a regular contributor on Facebook, so it's a tongue-in-cheek thing he's saying, but still.
Of course. Well, and this is the world we're in. So realize you do actually have some control over what you want. And, I still get the feeds that I go, why is that showing up? And so I just adjust things, and I just love what the time I do spend on social media. It becomes more productive. And I'm like, I love that video. And wow, there's another one. So it's feeding me. It's making me happy. Whereas I watch people who just grumble and write essays replies against things they don't like. And then they get fed up and pissed off that more of it comes their way. And I'm like, well, we could fix that. Well, they're wrong. I get it. But if they're wrong and you just feed into it, you're going to get more of what you don't like. Okay. And we have no fun with it whatsoever. No fun.
No. How could you possibly have fun with this world? There's just so much seriousness here. What's the point, right?
Yeah. And that's actually one of my personal beliefs, is there's way too many serious people on this planet. Well, and life's too short not to have fun. I'll be in front of an audience and I'll go, raise your hand if you agree life's too short not to have fun. And they raise their hands. I said, raise your hand if you know people that are just way too serious. And they raise their hand, and I go, raise your hand if you know them intimately, like they're sitting in your seat, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, God, he's right. Oh, man. I have no fun on stage.
Sam said something in the live stream. He said social media definitely can be used for good or for evil. And he's got evil in quotation marks. And then Jeffrey, before that, had actually the ultimate comment. He says, I love tripping, meaning tripping over your own feet. And it's a really interesting point, because we did come into this life knowing perfectly well what we're dealing with, what we were engaging with when we got here. And we were intending to, in the words of my friend David Strickle, dip our toe into that negative polarity stream. We chose that. We're actually here to do that. So that's actually an interesting piece of the puzzle there, that if we actually set ourselves up to do this and we engage in it.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. Because again, look, life is frequencies and vibrations. You're going to have ups, you're going to have downs. If someone thinks it's always going to just be up, they're kidding themselves and they're in denial. So the question is, and this is what, years ago, and I can't believe this, I'm going to date myself, Walt, but April 1st, and it's
you saw my hair, right? I mean, you're okay.
Right? Not even an April Fool's joke, but April 1st is going to be the 20th anniversary of when my wife and I became financially free for the first time at the age of 32.
Congratulations, by the way, 20-year anniversary.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing, is we didn't believe in personal development. It wasn't part of our realm. And so until we were introduced to it, and when it changed our life, we became financially free at the age of 32. Does that mean we've always remained that way? No, it always has that ups and downs. You constantly have to adjust, constantly go on the flow. COVID, I was traveling 200,000 miles a year around the world on average.
Wow.
doing live trainings. And on March 10th, 2010, I was coming back from India. Also on March 11th, my world changed and I got put into isolation. All my events around the world canceled. So all of a sudden I went from 200,000 to zero. Now I could have played the victim, which I did for a couple of weeks. I'm no different than anybody else. I went into victim role. What's going to happen? I physically, my mind made me sick. And my wife
most
sick.
of the population did. Let's be perfectly honest. I mean, worldwide, that was the common reaction.
Yeah. And all of a sudden when we started coming out of it and realizing what we were doing to ourselves, there's two powerful words that I'd love your audience to use whenever they get stressed out, because it changes our life all the time. And those words are, what's next? And so the moment we asked that question, we changed our mindset, and it was like, okay, we don't know how long it's going to last. We don't know when I'm going to do live events. You know, that big chunk of revenue is now gone. So what's next? And I'm blessed in many ways, Walt. And one of the ways is my wife and I have a beautiful acreage. We bought it almost 4 years ago with the intention that someday we'd build a facility, our own training center. So I wouldn't even have to travel as much. Well, when we popped that question out, what's next? We went, well, I'm home. We got the time. Why not build it now? But then all of a sudden, what happens with the mind? The mind does what the mind does, and it comes in and goes, yeah, but what if you don't have revenue? What if you can't afford it? What if this lasts for more than a year? All the what if scenarios. And so we use two other very powerful words that we use that attracts to us a lot of what we really want in our life. True wants. Because there's a difference. There's two types of wants. Ego wants and true wants. And most people, why the law of attraction, in my experience, does not work for them, is they go for ego wants. I want it now, the instant gratification. It's not what they truly want from their heart. So they're not in alignment. So all of a sudden fear was coming up, and the other two words were all in. We decided we're all in, because that's the other thing. Most people have that plan B. If it doesn't work out, I can do this. And the mind's going to go to your plan B. It's going to find a reason why what you say you want to do isn't working. So it can go, knew it wasn't going to work. Out we go. So by saying all in, and it took us almost 2 years from deciding to now, I'm sitting in, just completed a month and a half ago, my new office, and on the other side of my window, a 1,500 square foot training center, and on the other side of that, a 900 square foot prep area. My wife calls it her she shack, because if I got a studio, she gets a she shack. And now, so we built it, and just as we're building it, we go into another lockdown. So I can't even do a live training here. What's next? I'm now in the process of turning it into a super Zoom room. I've already got 9 TVs set up, so I can see up to 400 students at a time. I don't have to, once it's set up, I won't have to sit or stand behind my computer. I'll be able to have multiple cameras, and I'll be able to interact with my students and be the energetic person I am on stage normally in front of the camera. So it's how you look at things and how you adjust with it. So before personal development, my bad days could be a day, a week, a month. It would take me out a long time. Today, I still have ups and downs, but now my downs, if it lasts me more than 10 minutes, I'm checking in. What's taking me out? And so I've conditioned myself to be more aware. And to me, law of attraction is self-awareness. It really is. And and I could ramble on this for hours. You probably know that, Walt.
Well, we like your rambling, actually. It's very much in alignment with our rambling. So ramble away. You're doing very well.
No fun. No fun allowed. No fun allowed.
Oh, sorry. I forgot the rule. Doggone it. Okay. Oh, actually, there was one thing I kind of like to challenge people about this one, because this is where I go a little bit in a different direction from other people. So I'm just kind of curious to see how you're going to respond to it. You were talking for a moment there about how we have like the true wants, and then there's the ego wants. And I like to kind of tease on the ego concept a little bit, because I actually think the ego's gotten a bad rap. And
sure.
To give you my reasoning for it, when I did my research as to what the etymology of that was, ego is Latin for I. So all it is it's you. That's all it is. Yeah. And we have this tendency to say, well, that ego, that's different. That's separate from me. No, it isn't. That's you.
See, and I love that you're tapping into that, because to me, one of the biggest issues I've seen around the world is the people who try to deny they have an ego.
Yeah.
And like what you're saying, that's then denying that they're that they're themselves. And so what I've learned for me over the years is that people who try to deny it or suppress it, that's when it comes out in weird ways that people don't like. So what I've taught myself to do, and I work with my students on, is learn to allow your ego to play in healthy ways so that when you don't want it showing up, you can take it out of the equation. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. When I'm on stage, and I can be up to 12 hours a day on stage teaching my students for 3 to 5 days straight, and I'm giving. And when I'm on stage, I'm there for them, for me, and it's just my opinion. There's no room for my ego to come in. But I know if I don't give it a place to play healthfully, then it's going to come out while I'm on the stage. So for me, what I've learned over the years, the way I let my ego play is I like video games. And Walt, if you and I were to go head to head in a video game, dude, you're going down. That's all I'm going to say. Because I'm full on in ego and I'm there to take you out. Because that's how I let it play in a healthy way. And so even when I step off stage, if I have a 15-minute break, I'll just jump on a game to quiet my mind and get in there and just play. So when I step back on the stage, I can be centered, connected with my audience, and be there for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. It does make sense. And I like the fact that you're being kinder to your ego than so many other people are. Because right. I think we actually just do ourselves a disservice when we say, well, I want to keep my ego out of this. My ego is such a problem. No, your ego is not a problem. There's no problem there. Stop treating it like a problem. It's actually a solution in many ways. It's actually a very good thing.
And if you trust yourself to allow it to come up when it's meant to come up, and that when it comes up, you can handle it. You know, there's been times I've been on stage where I was teaching a program. I've been blessed to teach thousands of students how to become trainers, do what I do on live audiences and live stages. And I remember I was doing a training that teaches them how to do that specifically, a 5-day training. And the first day and a half is boring. I will tell you, Walt, because it's all the mundane, behind the scenes stuff that isn't sexy. People go, this is boring. But they don't realize it's what they have to, if they want to be great, they have to master this. And this one guy, all of a sudden he stands up, and out of the audience of 500 people, he goes, that's it. I'm out of here. This is absolute crap. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? He goes, this is basic. I don't need this. I'm doing $1 million a year already. And he started walking out, and I let my ego come up, and I said, then sit down right now. I said, because I'm already doing $15 to $20 million a year from the stage. So if you're not only doing $1 million, there's something you don't know. And the guy stopped, and he looked at me, and he sheepishly went and sat back down. And at the end of the 5 days, he went, thank you. He said, I realize that's how I take myself out. I always look for how I'm better than something I'm learning, and that's the reason not to learn anymore. He said, but you stopped me and made me learn more because you got my attention. Thank you. And I'm like, yeah, you're welcome. So, the ego is necessary. It is absolutely necessary. Just learn to honor it and don't do it a disservice, as you say.
That's really good. I like that. As you were telling that story too, it reminded me of something that we just had a summit about 2 weeks ago, and one of the themes of that summit was presented again by my friend Dan, who I mentioned earlier. The theme was the millionaire mindset. He was kind of the keynote for the summit, and he gave his views, which are excellent, of what that millionaire mindset is. But when you brought up the fact that you got 2 millionaires duking it out there, made me wonder, okay, from your perspective, what is the millionaire mindset? How do you think about that?
Yeah, it's being wealthy in all areas. That's to me what it is. And for me, people say they want to be millionaires, and I say get financially free first, because that's my forte. That's what I teach people. And definition of financial freedom is when your passive income, money working without you, is greater than your expenses. Now you're financially free because you don't have to work if you don't want to. And what I tell people is I say get financially free first, because what that does, and a lot of people don't realize, is I can only use my example. My wife and I were Domino's Pizza franchisees for 8 years at the point when we were introduced to personal development. We're over $150,000 in personal debt, going down quickly, stressed out beyond belief, when someone gave us tickets and said, you have to go to this event. And so we went, and it changed our life, because first, we learned why we were in debt, but more importantly, we learned to take ownership. See, I was good at blaming others for my debt. Oh, they told me about that investment, and that's why I lost it. It's their fault. Or they're the ones that did the investment. I was really good at blaming. So when I learned to take ownership of it, and we were working 70, 80 hours plus a week in our stores already. and we're like stressed out beyond belief. The third thing we learned is some actions we could take if we wanted to create financial freedom. Well, going away from that 3-day training, 9 months later, we went from $150,000 in debt to being financially free, retired completely. And the greatest gift it gave us, Walt, was the time freedom. Because now, all of a sudden, we had 70 plus hours a week extra to do with whatever we wanted. And here's what I recommend for people. If you're trying to become a millionaire, well, you're already stressed out and working hard. You're just adding to the stress. Do some easy little steps. Be willing to be real with yourself. Simplify your life to get your expenses down. Learn about passive income, get it up. See, when we became financially free, we weren't wealthy. We barely had enough to cover our expenses, but we were financially free. Now with that time freedom, 70 plus extra hours a week, my wife and I committed, we said, let's take 10 of those hours. We can sacrifice 10 of those hours to focus on creating wealth. And as you know, in the law of attraction, where attention goes, energy flows and results show. By focusing 10 hours a week on creating wealth, the wealth in all areas of our life became so easy. So go for financial freedom first, free up your time, then go for the wealth. And watch how much nicer of a journey it is, in my opinion.
You also made it a very interesting statement, and I want to hone in on it for a moment because I want you to also address what I think is probably your full context to it. You talked about taking ownership for what your situation was. But I'm pretty sure that phrase does not include the idea of beating yourself up.
Correct. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It was just the self-awareness of, okay, it's not their fault. I'm the one that chose to give them the investment without doing my due diligence or give them the money. Mm-hmm. And so it was having that self-awareness because I'm a big advocate. If you had a best friend that treated you the way you treat yourself, they're not going to be your friend for very long. We beat ourselves up unrelentlessly, unmercifully. So I teach my students, be more gentle with yourself. And, what would you tell a friend, if they were having a tough time? How would you console them? Don't overdo it. It's about the balance. Don't be overcritical. Don't be like, oh, it's okay again. It's okay again. Because people can go to the extreme that way too.
Yeah, it's true.
Like all things, it's about having that balance. And this is one of the reasons that I've found in my life, Walt, that it's important who you surround yourself with. And I'll tell you, I had a paradigm shift a year and a half ago when a mentor changed my mindset. Because I used to believe and be from the stage, I'd be like, oh my goodness, how many of you are excited that you're in a room full of like-minded people? And everybody be like, yeah! And that's what I believe. Surround yourself with like-minded people. But then my mentor, he said to me about a year and a half ago, he said, Robert, if you're surrounded by complainers and you're like-minded, you're going to be a complainer. He said, what you want to do is surround yourself with growth-minded people. And here's the difference. A growth-minded individual, they'll be there to help pick you up when you stumble. They'll be there to cheer you on when you're doing amazing. But one of the biggest roles that they will play is they will become the person who's willing, and listen to the words, willing to have the tough conversations with you when needed. Remember I said I like to keep it real with people. One of the reasons I will openly admit I wouldn't be here talking to you today, Walt, if it wasn't for my wife. See, one of the gifts my wife gives me is that she's not willing to let me play smaller than I am, even if it means kicking me in the ass. And it's a gift I now give her. See, left to my own devices, all by myself, I'd be in a job, because that's what I was conditioned to do as a child. I'd be miserable, hating it, but that's what I believed I would have to do. But she wasn't willing to let us play small. And because of that, I was willing to take the leap of faith and follow my passion of being a trainer. Do all the hard work, everything I need to do to be a master at it. And now that journey we've been on for the last 20 years is because when I was shrinking back going, we can't do that, we can't afford that, she's going, no, how can we? Do you want it? I'm like, yeah, I want it. But she goes, no, but how do we make it a reality? And because of that, we did. And now I get to live a life a lot of people wish they would have. And guess what? You can have it. I'm not ultra wealthy. I'm wealthy in all my areas of my life because I also like the balance of my life. I know people who they're not happy unless they have tens of millions of dollars sitting in the bank. I like to enjoy life. I don't want to work that hard.
Right. Exactly.
I like balance.
Balance is very important. I also am really impressed by your wife. Oh my goodness. I mean, I love my wife dearly. She's wonderful. But I mean, to have a wife who can actually come to you when you're in the midst of that rough space and say that to you,
right?
I mean, what kind of upbringing did she have? That's really fabulous.
Both youngest of very poor families. And we met when we were 13. We started dating when we were 16, and we got married when we were 19. And we just celebrated we're about to celebrate our 33rd wedding anniversary.
Whoa, congratulations.
Yeah, she is my everything. And she was raised by a single mother who raised 5 kids. And she taught her children, especially your 2 daughters, you do not rely on a man. You speak your truth. And so, yeah. So that's how she was brought up. And thank goodness she was.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very, very strong person. Today, people would say it's a strong woman. Sorry, that's a strong person. Just plain person. I mean, that's just amazing. That's really an amazing personal trait to have.
And we all have it in us. It's just giving ourselves permission to allow our true authenticity come through without worrying about what other people will think of us, about how they'll perceive us, if they'll like us or not. Look, there's 8 billion people on this planet. You're not going to get everybody. And now, to set a context, this is coming from a world-class people pleaser. Oh my God.
You said you could win the video game. I'll bet you I can win this game.
Not that there's a competition, but I'm taking you out.
No, of course not. Of course not.
Well, and that's, and it's okay. Because you said that, you remind me of a quirky little post of a really good friend of mine just put on. We, like you, have the same warped sense of humor. And it says, do you realize that when you clean your vacuum cleaner, you are the vacuum cleaner?
Well, as long as you're not doing it with a vacuum, that would be really painful. But yes, I understand your point.
It's just, I love to laugh because and I grew up in a very serious family and around a lot of serious people. So I guess my rebellion was, I'm going to be the one who laughs. And it's not for everybody, and I'm okay with that.
That's a pretty cool one, though, I'd say. I mean, if I was going to pick a way to rebel, that's a really good one, I think.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I had to, being that people pleaser, when I started training, I could have 1,000 people in this audience. 999 of them are riveted in their seats, loving what I'm teaching. And all of a sudden, one person stands up and walks out the door. Where do you think my attention used to go? It would go to that person.
In the audience.
Yeah, it's like, they don't like me. Meanwhile, they were going to the bathroom. But look what the mind did. Right? Hey, I'm only speaking what's true. And I got good. I got used to it because, and I even tell people, my style may not be right for you, or maybe it's just not right now. I've had 10% of the audience, 15% of the audience, 20% of the audience leave between the first day and second day of a training. And I had to really give myself permission to be okay with that, because it was like, now it allows me to put the focus on the people who truly want to be here. And because they're here, they deserve everything I have. So I had to change my focus, my mindset, to be of more service to the people who really were there. And again, that's law of attraction. Where is your focus going? What are you allowing to take you off what you say you want to accomplish? Is that squirrel, squirrel, squirrel? Or for women, sail, sail.
I like Jeffrey's comment. You got to love your inner critic. Absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
That's exactly
mm-hmm.
right.
Yep.
As you're talking there too, it's also reminding me that you were talking about how you were adjusting and constantly on your mindset and so forth after you had broken through. You already had reached your level of abundance in all areas and so forth, and you were teaching other people. But it's a kind of a different story when you're in the very beginning. I mean, before you and your wife became independent, you were $165,000 in debt and so forth. That's where it's a real challenge to reach that mindset. Right. What was your mindset like then? And how'd you change that around?
Just victim role, stress. We have to do it on our own. Don't you dare ask for help. That's weakness. And it was that 3-day training. It was the 3-day training that, because it didn't just give us theory, and we actually made changes, mental, emotional, physical changes right there, spiritual changes right there on the spot. So we didn't have to leave the training and go, now how does that go again? Cellular, we had felt it, and we were able to start putting it in practice. Now, that being said, I'm going to give myself and my wife kudos. Unfortunately in North America, the statistics higher in other countries, which to be, my US and Canadian friends, I'm going to be very honest with you. The reason I like training overseas more is because a higher percentage actually do something with it. The unfortunate statistic in the US and Canada, only 3% of people will actually ever utilize what they've been taught. And that's heartbreaking to me. It's heartbreaking. And, right now we've got an entitlement mentality, and people don't realize you could actually be so abundant just by going from entitlement, what's the government going to do for me, to going, what am I going to do for myself? And more importantly, what can I do for others? Because I love the universal principle that says you will be paid in direct proportion to the value you give. So if you want more wealth in all areas of your life, give more value. But Robert, I'm already working hard. I'm tired. I don't have more time. No, I didn't say more time. I said more value. Find ways to scale up. If you're already adding value and it's like 1 or 2 people at a time, how can you add value to more? Like, look what you're doing, Walt. Look at the value you and your show add by just daily being here. And you don't know whose life you're touching. And the beautiful part is you don't have to know. You don't know who you're impacting, and you don't have to know. I love, one of the greatest feelings for me is when a student will come back and they'll say, hey, do you remember when you said this? Here's how it changed my life. And I had no idea they were in my audience. And the best part is I don't have to know. I just have to be me, do what I love to do, giving value, and I get rewarded in so many ways. And so that's kind of my outlook on life, which means I am a continuous. Every time I decide to quit learning, my life goes downhill. And I get that, I get that kick in the butt, like, step up again. So I'm going to always learn. No matter how much I teach, I'm in the audience. Because 3 keys that I love: learn. Once you learn something, do it because you ingrain it deeper. Then teach it because that takes it to a whole new level. Now, once you teach it, what do? You learn again. So it's learn, do, teach. Learn, do, teach. Learn, do, teach. And if you follow those 3 things and do it over and over again, you can create the life of abundance that you want in all areas. Just my opinion again.
That's a cool little thing. Learn, do, teach. I got to remember that one. Because that summarizes what the life pattern tends to be anyway when everything's going well and when you're in a good space and you're doing the good stuff and getting the good results. It is a learn, do, teach pattern. So why not adopt it at all times? Makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I also, everything I do on my own or with teams, we always, when we finish up a task, there's 3 specific questions we always ask to help us move forward. We do this with no emotional attachment, no energy around it, like, against someone or whatever. It's, we take and we list down, we'll actually do it in point form. Okay. From what we just did, what worked? This worked, this worked, this worked, this worked, this worked. Great. What did not work? No blame, no accusations, just what did not work? Well, and you have to own it. In my opinion, this didn't work. Perfect. This didn't work. This didn't work. And then the third question is, what can we do different? Because your greatest lessons are going to come from what did not work and the adjustment that you make. And again, this is, if people use this in all areas of their life, they'll be amazed at what they can attract. And can I actually, when we talk people pleaser, can I give you an example of kind of everything I teach comes from my own life anyway? I've experienced.
Oh, let me tell you, Robert, we absolutely adore stories around here. So you're not going to go wrong by giving us an example like that. I promise you.
Perfect. Well, have you ever heard of a company called Mind Valley?
No, I don't think I know that one.
Oh, dude, you got to Google it. Vision Lakiani, Mind Valley. It's out of Malaysia, out of Kuala Lumpur. Powerful. Okay. This company. So this gentleman, when you Google it, you'll be blown away. They're all about law of attraction. They're all about meditation. They're all about how to take your lives to a whole new level. And his company now, I think, is worth only about $100 million. So in 2009, I was very, very blessed. I was in the middle of a hiatus, and a friend of mine asked me to host an event that was in Calgary, Alberta, where I lived at the time. And in this event, I wasn't doing the best health-wise. I was on the hiatus because I had herniated a disc. I had burnt myself out by overdoing my trainings and not taking proper care of myself. But because it was a good friend and the lineup, I said, Greg, who do you have? He says, well, our first speaker is the Dalai Lama. Yes. And who else? He says, well, we're going to have...
Like you need somebody else after that, right?
Right? He goes, well, we're going to have Sir Richard Branson. We have F.W. de Klerk. Do you know who F.W. de Klerk is?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah. President of South Africa, set Mandela free.
Yep.
Stephen Covey Sr., one of the last presentations he did. So he's rattling off these people, and I'm like, so why do you need me? He says, Robert, we've got the greatest thought leaders in the world, and no one can host a room and hold a context like you do. So I want you to be our host. And I'm
man.
Okay, done. And so while we're hosting this, there's like 18 Barbara DeAngelis, Les Brown, some great friends of mine were there as well. And we're doing this event, and this gentleman, Vision Lakiani, gets on stage, and he just crushes it. He blows the audience away, because this whole training, this whole series we did, there was absolutely no selling. It was just value, value, value. All the speakers, not one of them was paid to come to it. Their trade-off was they got to be in the 30-person meet and greet with the Dalai Lama. 30 people with the Dalai, powerful. And so Vision just blows me away. And because I'm the host, I get to meet everybody in the green room. Tough job, I know, Walt. Tough, but I was willing to do it.
I'm trying to grasp it, actually. So, yeah.
And I'm telling him, I'm like, dude, you just were amazing. I loved how you got the audience dancing. You timed them in. And he's listening for a bit. And then all of a sudden he goes, stop. He goes, no offense, but you don't know who I am, do you? I'm like, yeah, you're Vision Lakiani. I know who you are. He goes, no, dude. He says, what I mean is you don't know who I am in relationship to how you, Robert, changed my life. Ooh. I'm like, pardon me? Ooh. He goes, May of 2008, he said, you were in doing a training in Kuala Lumpur for the first time. You had 4,800 students in the audience. I was one of them. He said, my partner and I had started our company a couple of years earlier. We were financially struggling. We had 15 staff members. We were losing on average $15,000 a month. I decided to bring 9 of my staff members to that weekend training because we heard a lot of great things about it. He says, I'm going to be honest. I want to leave the first day because I'm like, they're just here to sell us stuff. He said, but something you said made me stay, and I stayed the whole 3 days. He said, you changed my life. He said, that was in May of 2008. He said, by December, we had our first $1 million month. We had made so much money that we were able to pay all of our debts off, including mine and my partner's school debt from the U.S., and buy our office space that we have now in the tower. He says, and you have no idea that it's because of you that I'm where I'm at today.
Wow.
And I didn't. I was like, and today we're great friends. And every time I'm in Malaysia, I go to their office because you want to talk about a conducive space for working. They have glass panels that, depending on the light, it reflects the colors differently. And they have everything instead of just stairs. You can climb up bars to go to the different levels to do the workstations. They have 2 pods that are just for someone needs a break. They go to the break. No questions asked. Go have a sleep. Like this office space. And they have these halls called the Hall of Awesomeness, where it's all beanbag chairs, and they have a full stage, and they bring in the world's greatest speakers to come and talk to their, the community in that. 300-400 people can sit in these beanbag chairs in stadium seats and at no cost. And like what he's created is just phenomenal. And now today they're worth about $100 million, And I didn't even know the role I had played in that. See, when you're living your passion and doing what you love, the ripple effect you're sending out it's phenomenal. And it's not even who you impact directly, but who do you impact that impacts someone, right?
Yeah, that's both the exciting and the scary thing all in one piece.
True.
Because like you said, doing a podcast, I do know some of my listeners. Some of them I've gotten to know. Some have actually become co-hosts, which has been really cool. But most of them I have never had any kind of communication with, and I don't know anything about what's going on with their lives. Have I had any impact? Are they cursing me out every show? I don't know. It could be just about anything. But you're right. There's all kinds of stuff that's going to be playing off of that. And who knows which of that's going to come rebounding back, because we live in a mirror universe. Yeah. What we put out mirrors back to us.
Law of projection.
We know it's going to mirror back. We just don't know exactly how it's going to mirror back. And we don't know when to duck.
Eyes in the back of the head. Here it comes.
Right. But it's a really, really good point. I love the name dropping you were doing, especially since you mentioned Sir Richard Branson, because the same guy I mentioned before, Dan Mangena, is going to be spending time in April at Richard Branson's island, wherever it is in the Caribbean. And he made the comment. He says, "I'm going to be the poorest millionaire there, and I'm going to be lapping it up." That was like his big point. Like, I go to these things, I want to connect with these people because I learn so much from these people.
Yeah. Yeah. When my friend started that, where he would actually, because Richard Branson always rented out his island, but he was never there. And so a friend of mine basically said, because he knew Richard well, and he said, why don't we do a mastermind where you're there for a week? And when he first started, he was charging, when I had the opportunity to go and I didn't take it, you talk about beating yourself up, and I didn't take it, he was charging $25,000 per person to have a week on Necker Island with Richard Branson.
Wow.
Today, I believe it's like $75,000 or $100,000 per person to be able to have that, because Richard Branson's there. You're playing sports on the beach with them. You're just having drinks. It's not all like business. Some of the greatest insights come from when you're relaxed and just having a conversation like you and I are. The depths of learning and the connections. In my new book, I'm talking about the 4 currencies of life. And one of the currencies, and it's the one I live the most for my life, is the currency of experience. Are you willing to just exist through life, or are you willing to have an experience? So when I run masterminds, I could easily just say, hey guys, 10 people, come to my home, let's have a mastermind. And that'd be okay. We'd do well. But I love to make it an experience. 2 years ago, just before COVID, I had 8 of my students meet me in Florida, where we hopped on a private jet. We flew to the Bahamas, had 2 white Rolls-Royce cars meet us, give us a full police escort all the way through the city to a Sandals resort. And we spent all day long masterminding on the beach. And because of the experience of it, people who didn't know each other became great friends. And in that day, for those 8 people, we actually created 8 7-figure businesses right there that day. And today, 2 years later, we're all still deeply connected as friends and business partners with each other in some cases because of the experience. And so I encourage people, don't just exist. Don't get to the end of your days and look back and go, what did I really do? I want you to look back and go, man, my tank is empty because I just loved life. I just lived life. The goods, the bads, and all of it. I experienced it. And that's when you truly, like, to me, a friend of mine was just doing a talk for one of my mastermind groups, and he called it about the end game score. He said everybody's end game score, and it came up from a friend telling him he just finished a new Spider-Man game. 48 hours almost straight of playing, and he accomplished the whole game, but he was pissed off because at the end of the game, it said you actually only accomplished 24.7% of the things you could have done in the game. And he's like, what do you mean I only accomplished? See, he didn't go and try to get the extra suits, or he didn't go and try to do the extra levels. And how many people do that in their life? They just try to get through life. I want to get to the end and go, your end game score is 100%. Because I lived life. And that's the way I look at it.
I want to throw another curve at you because I'm pretty sure you can hit it. There isn't a curve. So I threw the knuckleball, you hit that one. I threw the sinker, you got that one. So I don't think you're going to have any trouble hitting the curve. But
the pressure.
We've been name dropping here, and we've been talking about how you made all these wonderful contacts, amazing things happen, amazing. Most of us don't live meeting Richard Branson every day. Most of us, we meet Joe Blow.
Mm-hmm.
But Joe Blow is just as important as Richard Branson. It's just that Richard Branson has stuff to teach us that Joe Blow can't teach us. So how do you balance that out?
Yeah. And I'm glad you're asking that, because my biggest belief is the greatest gift anybody can give this planet is to be themselves, whatever that looks like. And so when I'm on a stage, one of the things I'll do within 10 minutes is I come down, I walk into the audience, I on purpose find someone who I can tell is really tall. And I'll ask them if they can assist me. And I'll have them stand up. We'll look at the camera so everybody can see it on the jumbo screens. And I'll say, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know something. I am short. And that's the response I usually get. I thank the person to have them sit down. And then I say, now, why did I tell you that? I said, because what I want you to understand is just because I'm on that stage doesn't mean I'm any better than you. I'm no different. Now, is it possible I may know something you don't know? Absolutely. But isn't it also possible you know something I don't know? Absolutely. And where people come into the problems is when we put others on a pedestal instead of realizing we're all the same. So sitting in a green room with Richard Branson, you have an everyday conversation, and he actually relaxes more when you're not putting him on a pedestal and like, oh, Richard. Oh. It's just like, hey, how are you doing? You respect who he is, but you treat him like an everyday person. And every successful icon out there. The deepest conversations I have is when we're just having a beer, we're just chatting. There's no business. It's not about, okay, what are we going to do to go to the next level? It's just, hey, how was your day? And when you get treated like a human, so everybody you meet, when I'm in front of an audience, I don't know who's there. I've had billionaires in my audience and I didn't even know it. And that's awesome. And there was one event where a person, it slipped that the guy he was talking to was actually a billionaire. And I knew this gentleman by the time. And so he asked me, he says, if you're already a billionaire, why are you here learning this? He says, because I want to have even more to help more people. So if I don't keep improving me, how am I going to accumulate more to help more people? And it's like, yeah, see, we're all just the same. We came from the same place. We're going back to the same place. So no matter who you're interacting with, just be you and allow your genuineness, your authenticity to come through. And you'll actually be amazed at the successful people, by your terminology, that will come out of the woodwork that will want to get to know you. And you'll be going, how did I attract that? And again, you don't have to know. Les Brown, he started off as a mentor of mine. He was a guest at one of the trainings I was doing, and we became great friends. And then I became a mentor to him as he's a mentor to me. And that's why when I wrote my first book, he wrote the foreword. He said, Robert, please let me write the foreword to it. Nice. Because, I can call him up and say, hey, Les, how you doing? What do you need? And through COVID, it's been a lot of those conversations of reinvention because the world has changed. And he's no different than anybody else. He's such a dynamic guy, but he's just a guy like everybody else.
Very true. And it's very important.
Did I get it?
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. They're chasing it down on Landown Street. So yeah, I think you got a piece of it.
How's that go?
There it goes. It's high. It's deep. Yeah, I think you nailed it there. In fact, we've been talking a lot about counting things in terms of dollars, but of course that's not the only form of abundance there is. And I'm sure you've got a bunch of stories. I'm kind of sussing them out here to find out what they're going to be. I'll give you one to kind of set the thing off. During our summit, the summit was kind of money oriented, but we had a really interesting result. One of our presenters was also a member of the audience, and she was in a workshop that again Dan did. Dan seemed to be like the star of the show for the summit, but Dan was doing this really cool workshop. Man. Dan he is. He really is. He's a great guy too. Really cool guy. But anyway, Dan's doing this workshop. We called it blasting through your blocks. Yeah. And all he was really doing was kind of getting in behind your conscious mind and giving you a few ideas to think about, do a little visualization and all that kind of stuff. And the whole idea was just to get the mental blocks out of the way, where money is concerned. Well, she volunteers. She wants to be in the workshop doing this. So she's the next subject, and he does his thing with her and finishes. And then, I was like the last person in line. So I wanted to do it too. So I did mine. And while I'm recovering afterward, because I was so disoriented, he does a really great job. While I was recovering, she comes back on screen. Her name's Maria. And she says, and this is a story I already knew, she's had fibromyalgia for over 30 years. She lives in constant pain. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, her pain is usually an 8. It's just like normal for her. Mm-hmm. And she said after she did that session with Dan, the pain had fallen to a 3. And by the time we were done with the whole workshop, it was 0, and it has stayed 0 ever since. Now, it was a completely unintentional consequence. We certainly weren't trying to do any health. We weren't trying to do healings or anything like that. Right. But because we were doing energetic blocks, of course, energetic blocks could be on, they'll be anything, you can't tell what they're necessarily going to be. So we got this really cool result afterward. Now, is there a money value attached to that? No. But is there a value attached to it? Hell yeah. That's a huge, huge shift for her.
Yeah. Without your health, what good is wealth?
Exactly.
Plain and simple. Exactly. That's how my wife signs all of her emails, to your health and your wealth, because without health, wealth is worth nothing. And, I'm glad you're bringing that up as well, because I want people to understand that, again, we're holistic. mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and financial. You cannot impact one area without impacting the other. And it's those little subconscious blocks that you may even realize are there. But your mind is so powerful in the ability to actually heal yourself with guidance sometimes, because you don't know what you don't know. So that's why it's critical to have coaches, to have mentors, to help guide you through the things that you're not aware of. Even me, when I'm on stage halfway around the world, my wife can sense if I'm not feeling well because she does Reiki, and she's actually performed Reiki from our home. And I feel it halfway around the world because energy, we are that connected if you go into the quantum physics of it all. Yeah. And so my throat might be going, something will be going on, and we'll get on a call and she says, I've been, sending you some energy in that and been doing some treatments. And I'm like, that's what's been going on. But I can feel it. I can tell that, it's getting a little strength, or it's not going as hoarse. Because when I'm on stage, I'm all out. And after 3 days, my voice is, after 12 hours a day, it's like, hello, okay, are you guys still there? Right? And so she's constantly at home just holding that energy for me and sending the healing. That's how powerful our beings are. It doesn't matter. You and I are thousands of miles apart. You're in Connecticut. I'm in Alberta. But we're still connected.
Yeah.
Like we're right here with each other right now. We're connected.
Right. And the cool part is once you make a connection, it's always there.
And that's right. Always. Whether you like it or not.
Be careful what you wish for.
What you ask for. Oh, I love saying that to people. They go, Robert, I want to do what you do. Careful what you wish for.
You're right.
And they go, well, how do I do what you do? And I say, if you want to do what I do, you've got to be willing to do what I do. The unsexy, boring as hell, practicing behind the scenes, working on myself constantly, all the things that aren't what a star does. But it's the stuff, if you want to be good at what you do, it's those tasks that if you do them, you have to be willing to do what I do. The inner work I do on myself constantly to be able then, how did you know that's what I was going through? Because I've experienced it, probably at some point or another. And that's where, when people get that, it brings it back to just be you. Because here's what's going to happen for people. They're either, when you're yourself, Walt, and you're authentic, either people are going to like you or they're not. And if they like you, that's awesome. If they don't like you, that's awesome. Because I look back at my life, and when I was that people pleaser, how much time, energy, stress, money I spent trying to get people who wanted me to be different to like me. Now, when I'm just me and I attract the people who like me for who I am, not who they want me to be, my life just flows so much easier. And I think it was Dr. Wayne Dyer said it. He was about to do a very controversial speech in front of 1,000 people. And a friend of his was behind the stage with him. And he said, Wayne, aren't you worried about what those people are, think of you, your reputation? And he looked at his friend and he said, there's 1,000 people in that audience. That means I have 1,000 different reputations. Are you telling me I should be worried about every single one of them?
Good point.
Right?
Yeah, you won't go on stage if you're doing that. It's just not going to happen. There's too many things in the way.
And that's what holds people back from living their greatness, is they are too worried about what people think of them.
And I know that one real well because I'm real good at it.
Well, that's why I got the message from the universe to tell you that today, Walt.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I was asking for that message, I must say. So this is very well received. No, I've been having conversations with my guides lately. Like, I need some stuff, and they're starting to deliver the stuff, and it's never in the way that you expect. And thank you very much.
Yep.
Keep it coming.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Now, as usually happens, we just raced through an hour.
Already.
I mean, we just zipped through it.
Man, I wish you would have let me, I wish you would have actually let me speak at some point. Come on, Walt.
Well, I'm still learning this trade. It's only taken me 9 years, and I've only gotten this far. But no, seriously, all seriousness, all kidding aside, we do need to find out, how do people reach out to Robert Riopel? Because what's the point of hearing about you if we don't know where to find you?
Yeah, well, my assistant tells me I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. You just put in my name and you can find me. Hey, I just finally got an assistant, so I'm happy about that.
Good for you.
But, you were so gracious, Walt, to have me on your show as a guest. And I believe our time is our most precious commodity. And the fact not only that you've invited me and spent your time, but your listeners have actually been here to listen and or on the replay. And so as a gift from you and I to your listeners, if they go to robertriopel.com, just my name, so RobertRiopel.com, they're actually going to be able to get the entire digital download of my book, Success Left a Clue, international best-selling book, as our gift to them.
Wow.
The entire book. Now, I will say it does come with a caveat, though. I did not write the book for people to read it and put it on the shelf and make it shelf help. That's not
people
why
actually have to read it? Oh, no, hold on. Wait. There's like a condition attached. You have to read the darn thing?
Got it. No.
He held the book to his head just now, just so you know what happened, listeners.
Because, step 3 in my book of the 6 steps is taking action. Probably the biggest difference when I travel around the world between success and non-success, successful people take action. So I actually wrote this as a workbook, and there's action steps all the way through it. And because of my warped sense of humor, Walt, I even say in it things like, did you do the last action? If not, go back, stop reading right now, go back, do the action, and then continue reading. Because I know people are creatures of habit. And look, I just turned to page 104, and it's titled what? Law of Attraction. Imagine that, right?
Yeah. How about
that? Because I do like having fun, and I'm going to make a guarantee and a promise to your audience. If they download the book and they read it and do the action steps, it'll change their life. Because I like to have fun and I'm goofy, I even came up with my own emoji. This is called a Cluemoji. I even trademarked the name Cluemoji, which was kind of cool. So I like to have fun. But yeah,
there's another reason to download the book too, because most people listening to this are listening to a podcast, so they can't see the video. So now they got to actually download the book to see the emoji. That's cool.
There we go, right?
Yeah.
And in all seriousness, I promise you, read it, do the action steps. You'll take your life to another level. And I'd love for people to. That's how they can stay in contact with me and find out more.
That sounds great. Robert, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I've had a wonderful time. I hope you have too. I think you have. But you keep smiling, so that's usually a good sign,
Either that or it's like, I can't wait till this is done. No, I'm having a blast.
Well, I've done those too. I mean, I've had plenty of those, including I've had a couple with one in particular who was a very famous person. I never want to talk to him again. So it can be either way. This is not one of those. I really like this one. So thank you very much. Really.
Well, if there's ever a time you want me back, more than happy, because when I can laugh and hopefully add some value at the same time, that to me becomes a win-win, and I'm all in.
Okay, well, you just realized what you just did there, because I'm going to be sending you an email with today's links in it, and it's going to include a link to the calendar so you can sign up for the next one.
Done like dinner.
All right, there we go. You heard it here first, folks.
I don't know if we'll have anything else to talk about, though.
Oh, yeah, well, we always run out of things, and then the conversation gets really good.
That's right. It's like, here's another one. Fastball.
Exactly. Are you sure you haven't done this show before?
No, this is the first one. However, how you and I met through Podmatch, I decided to prove my new book, which is called The Authority Key. I decided I want to become the number one guest on Podmatch. And in 5 months, I was the number one guest for 3 months solid because I did 163 interviews in 5 months.
Wow. Dang. Oh.
You got to be willing to do what it takes to become masterful at something, right? So
you are the champion master, my friend. No doubt about it. Thank you once again. Loved having you on the show. We're going to love having you back again once more. And thank you to podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.